Hey, it's Joni. Welcome. I recently finished reading my 55th Stephen King book, and I thought that was like a nice round number to go ahead and do a video that I've seen a lot of different people do, which is just ranking all the Stephen King books that I have read to date from my least favorite to I Want to Be Buried with It. These are my thoughts on how I would rank these books today. Like, if you asked me a week from now, my list would probably be in a little bit different order. Upon rereads, I'm sure it would be. It's a super subjective list. This is meant to be just for fun. And with 55 books, I'm not going to say a ton about each one, so this will hopefully go pretty quickly. Yeah, let's just get into it. Number 55, The Colorado Kid, a mystery book that did not solve the mystery. It was fine, I just didn't love it. 54, Roadwork. Again, it was fine. I was just a little bit bored with it, so. Number 53 is The Gunslinger, the first Dark Tower book. So there are a couple sentences, like a couple single lines in this book that are really good, but I think mostly they're really impactful after having read the rest of the series and just having reheard those lines repeated throughout the rest of the series and just knowing the implications of them, sort of. Overall, the experience of reading The Gunslinger was not that great. Number 52, Cycle of the Werewolf. I don't understand why they didn't just make this into a comic book series or graphic novel. Maybe they thought King fans at that time would not also be comic book fans, but there's not a ton of story in it, and there are some drawings, I think a lot more graphic, to go with the little bit of story would have rounded it out a lot better. Number 51, The Running Man. Actually super interesting dystopian. Just my reading experience of it wasn't as good as the other 51 books on the rest of this list. Number 50, Rage. It was good. It was fine. I don't have a lot to say about it. 49 is Joyland, the other hard case crime he wrote. This seems to be a fairly well-loved book, and it was fine. Like, it did a lot of things pretty well. It did a lot of things I enjoyed. Just overall, I feel like it tried to do a lot of things, and they didn't all quite pan out for me. 48 is Thinner. This one is actually, again, a super cool story, but there was something really unpleasant about my reading experience of it, hence the kind of lower ranking. 47 is The Dark Half. The storyline of this, the idea of this, having your alter ego, sort of your pseudonym, come to life and wreak havoc, is a great story. Just my memory of the reading experience again. I didn't think it was put together, I guess, quite as well as some of his other stuff. 46 is On Writing, part memoir, part guide for aspiring writers, I guess. I'm neither an aspiring writer nor a typical fan of memoirs, so I'm totally not the target audience for this one. It was good, though. It was enjoyable. 45 is The Wastelands, the third Dark Tower book. It's hard to articulate why I didn't love this as much as some of the other ones. I think I just really got into the characters in book 2, and then in this one, they split up in a lot more weird things that in a world that I wasn't that familiar with were happening, and I wasn't all there for it. I'm not the hugest fantasy fan, high fantasy fan, generally speaking. If you are a high fantasy fan, from what I've seen, other fans of the Dark Tower series tend to rank that higher if they are more fantasy-driven readers. 44 is The Outsider. This is a really great story that did a few things really well. I really enjoyed some of the characters in it. I tend to not enjoy his detective-y stuff quite as much, though. On the same line, number 43 is Mr. Mercedes, the first Bill Hodges book. There are some scenes in this that are absolutely fantastic that I frickin' loved, just for the record. 42 is The Dead Zone, a great, fantastic story. I didn't quite connect with the characters as much as in some of his other stuff, but it was a great time. 41 is 4 Past Midnight, the lowest rated novella collection on this list. All 4 stories in this were really good. They were fine, they were enjoyable, they were a good time, but none of them were fantastic, for me anyway. Number 40, End of Watch, the final book in the Bill Hodges trilogy. I really like where he took this story. It went from the beginning of the first book to the end of the third book were quite different, and I really kind of enjoyed the ride along the way. Number 39 is Bag of Bones, which I think is one of his scarier books. It's definitely a good, haunting story. Number 38, The Bizarre Bad Dreams. This is the lowest ranked short story collection on this list, and I haven't read it since it came out. I don't have the most vivid memory of reading it, but I don't remember any really standout fantastic stories, and I do remember a couple that I didn't love, hence the low-ish ranking. 37 is Elevation. I thought this one was fun. It seems kind of hit or miss for people, but I enjoyed this one. Number 36, Song of Susanna, the sixth Dark Tower book. This one got super meta and kind of trippy, and I was there for it. I was there for the meta. I was there for the what the crap's going on. It just felt like a bridge between Wolves of the Call and the Dark Tower. There wasn't a ton. I don't know. It didn't move things along a ton, but it also didn't tell its own story like some of the other books in the series did. It was good. It just wasn't the best in the series. 35 Finders Keepers, the second Bill Hodges book. I think I enjoyed this one so much because I was pretty invested in the characters from the first one, but this one took a turn toward a more traditional Stephen King book. It felt more like a Stephen King book, and it was a good time. 34, co-written with Richard Chismar, is Gwendy's Button Box. I wasn't sure if I want to put this on the list because it was a Chismar idea, and he has now continued the series without Stephen King. But whatever, I made the choice, it's on the list. I really enjoyed this. It's a mixture of sort of charming, but related to and stemming from some really kind of darker themes and darker things from the overarching Stephen King universe. I thought it was really good. Number 33, Wizard and Glass, the fourth Dark Tower book. I loved this one. I thought the story was fantastic. It did move the overarching plot of the series along a little bit, I think at the end of the book. But you got so much of Roland, like, of understanding of Roland. And the story itself that's told within that book was just fantastic. I loved it. 32 is Night Shift, his first published collection of short stories. The writing in this one I don't think is that great overall, but there are some stories in it. Most of the stories in it really are just so iconic. Even if they're not actually iconic, there's something about them that just feels super, I guess, impactful to me. I'm not sure. I would definitely recommend checking that one out if you haven't yet. Number 31, Different Seasons, another novella collection. The 4 stories in this, I think, are all fantastic. They're all pretty much different, like very different types of stories, but they're all done really well. Number 30, The Dark Tower, the 7th and final book in the Dark Tower series. This wasn't perfect for me. There were some things in it that I didn't love. I thought were a little overly convenient or something. But overall, I had a really good time with it. It had a lot of scenes in it, a lot of plot lines in it that were really fun. And I actually loved the ending. I knew sort of how it was going to end before I got into it. I can understand being a little taken aback if you don't know how it's going to end. I kind of knew, but I loved it. It was way more perfect than I thought it could be. Everything about the ending, I just loved. Number 29, The Girl Who Loved Tom Gordon. If Stephen King were to write a middle grade survival with some potentially fantastical and creepy strange things, it would be this one. It's a good one. Number 28, Misery. Before my recent reread of this, it would have been much, much lower on the list. There are some parts that I think are pretty boring, and I would actually recommend, I think, the audiobook over physically reading it. That was a better experience, at least for me. But after my reread, the story is just too great. There are too many flippin' awesome things in this to rank it any lower than I did. Number 27, Everything's Eventual, another short story collection. There are some absolutely fantastic ones in this one. 26, Dr. Sleep, the sort of sequel to The Shining. Everybody just calls it a sequel to The Shining, but it's not like, it doesn't feel like a traditional sequel to me. That's beside the point. The actual plotline of this one is really cool. There are some really cool ideas in it, and Rose the Hat is like a flippin' awesome, really unique villain. It was a good time. 25, co-written with Owen King, is Sleeping Beauties. I don't think it's like his best writing overall, and I don't know how much of that was Owen versus Stephen's writing abilities, but the story was great. It doesn't seem to get a ton of love. It's not one of his more popular ones from what I have seen, but its settings and themes and characters were all very compelling to me, and I really enjoy it. 24, Just After Sunset, yet another short story collection. Again, there are some fantastic ones in this. 23, Salem's Lot. I actually wanted to put this one a lot lower on the list because my reading experience of it wasn't great, but at the time I was coming off of an Anne Rice kick, and I really wanted like vampires who were point of view characters and not just monsters in the story. But I didn't think that was very fair because what it did fantastic, and the things that it did, the small town atmosphere and the story that it told, I'm pretty sure that if I reread today, I would enjoy exponentially more. Number 22, you can hate on the shit weasels all day long. I loved Dreamcatcher, and I didn't mind them at all. Number 21, an original screenplay, Storm of the Century. I would recommend watching the, I think, ABC TV miniseries that was made based on the screenplay, or of the screenplay using the I don't know. I do so wish, though, it had been novelized. I think that would be a really good reading experience. Number 20, the classic Firestarter. This one is fantastic, and in this day and age of Stranger Things, I kind of hope that more people check it out. Number 19, Gerald's Game. This one is getting a lot more love lately with the recent Netflix adaptation, which was fantastic. The book itself, though, especially considering most of it takes place in a bed, like with a person in a bed, it was so good. I loved it. Number 18, probably his darkest story from my experience, Pet Sematary. This one has some super creative and fun elements to it, and also a lot of depressing things in it, but it is definitely a punchy horror book overall. Number 17, Rose Matter. This one also doesn't get a ton of love, but one of the things I love best about King's writing is his character development, his character work, his making these people feel like real, flawed, unique, individual people, and him utilizing that ability to tell a story of a victim of domestic abuse was great. I think he did a fantastic job with this, and I love this story. Number 16, The Regulators, another like Western fantasy. I enjoyed this one a lot more than I expected to. I think because it has a little bit of like a Twilight Zone feel to it. Number 15, Wolves of the Kala, the fifth Dark Tower book. I know that King unabashedly borrowed from a lot of classic stories for this one. They did not detract for me. This book was fantastic. I absolutely loved it. Number 14, Carrie, one of the few books that I really enjoy rereading. It's great. It's a fun time. It has some points to make. You should read it. Number 13, The Stand. I'm specifically talking about the complete and uncut edition. I have read the first edition that was published, and I prefer the extended one. The first half of this book would be in my top 3, I would say, but there are enough things that happen in the latter half that I don't love, that I'm either slightly bored with or slightly annoyed by, that it had to be a little bit lower on the list. I still, though, have an incredible amount of love for the characters and the story. Number 12, the final short story collection on this list is Skeleton Crew. This one is fantastic. It is my favorite collection ever. It has the best short stories in it. Number 11, Cujo. Again, they're not tied to a bed, but two people stuck in a car for 300 pages could be kind of boring. I thought it was super tense and fun. There was also a lot more story to the characters than I expected, and I thought it was fantastic. Number 10, The Green Mile. I don't know why this one doesn't get more love than it does. I think it's fantastic. I cried at least 3 different times when I read this. It is a fantastic book. Number 9, Under the Dome. Oh, I love this book so much, and I know there are people who hate the ending. I liked the ending, but besides that, the point of the book was not how the dome came to be over this small town. It's what happened under that dome, and I loved what happened under the dome. Number 8, Dolores Claiborne. I would not have thought that a monologue, essentially, of a person being interviewed by the police could be so interesting, could make me visualize the events that she's talking about so clearly. It's incredible. Number 7, Full Dark, No Stars, basically novella collection. Every story in this one blew me away. I absolutely loved them all. Number 6, I think this one is getting a lot more love lately, which is fantastic. That's Needful Things. It is so much flippin' fun. So much fun. Number 5 is The Drawing of the Three, the second Dark Tower book. I'm not sure why I love this one so much. I think it was just a combination of being super trippy, of taking this super stoic gunslinger and making him really vulnerable, and then introducing us to the rest of the people in what will become the quartet that are all super interesting, crazy, unique people. I love this book. Admittedly, if I had not really recently finished reading The Dark Tower, I might have rated it lower if I weren't so present in those characters at the moment. Either way, though, it would be a pretty highly rated book on the list. Number 4 is The Tommyknockers. I know people think this book is bloated. I do not. I love the body snatchers. I love the small town. I love the characters. I love the creepy tentacle things. It was all good for me. Number 3, The Long Walk. The least action-packed dystopian about kids who have to die that is somehow the most impactful of all of the couple dystopians about kids who have to die that I have read. It's fantastic. It's another one of the only books that I enjoy rereading. I've read several times and would will probably read several more. Number 2, I almost bumped number 1 for this. Oh, but I decided not to. Number 2 is The Shining. This book is so freaking great. I love a good haunted house story. I love a character slowly going mad. I love the tension with the boiler. I didn't know I would love creepy topiary animals nearly as much as I did, or axes, or naked, creepy, gross, decaying women. Everything about this book was a good time. And of course, that means number 1 is It. No surprise to people who've watched a ton of my videos. I don't even know what to say about it. There are so many fantastic things in it. The entity that is Pennywise is so intriguing to me. The characters are fantastic. The multitude of terrifying situations within the book are a ton of fun. Some of the morals, some of the themes, some of the weird things, I just loved. I loved everything about it. Anyway, this is my current ranking of the 55 Stephen King books that I have read to date. Let me know in the comments if you've done a list similar to this. I did withhold watching any very recently because I wanted to do my own list and I didn't want to be influenced. So I'd really like to go back and check out some of those that I skipped. Or if you have, whether it's a video or a blog, or you just want to tell me where you rank the books that you've read by him, I would love to find out. I think it's super interesting. Also, if you want to have a conversation about what you consider a Stephen King book, there is a lot of conversation to be had with that. I know a lot of people in these lists count the entire Dark Tower series as one book. A lot of them have Blockade Billy as its own book, when I did not, even though I know it was published on its own initially. I don't know. There are really a lot of different ways to count how many books Stephen King has written, and I'm nerdy and I enjoy talking about it. That's enough conversation for today. Thank you so much for watching. If you've made it to this point, I will talk to you all again soon. Bye.